What's up, fellow Hoop fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Last Shot NBA show here on Little Birdie TV. And as always, we are brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. Now, Wednesday morning means we always have a special guest. And today we have a very special guest coming at us from Philadelphia, USA, Mr. Ky Carlin. How are you, sir?
What's going on, Nick? How are you, man? I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty well.
That's good to hear. We were just joking now a little bit off air before we came on about this turbulent Philadelphia 76ers season, which has been turbulent for many, many reasons. I mean, the on-court product has actually been pretty good in recent weeks, thanks to one man, Joel Embiid. We're going to get stuck into Joel in a second as well. First, I just want to ask you, Ky, what have you seen from the Philadelphia 76ers so far this season?
I've seen a lot of inconsistencies, and I think that's for like a lot of different reasons. You know, they started off 8-2, then they got ravaged by COVID. They didn't have Joel Embiid for I think 9 games. They didn't have Tobias Harris for a handful of those games. They also didn't have Danny Green for a handful of those games, not because of COVID, because he had a hip injury. So you're really relying on Tyrese Maxey, who's only in his second year. Seth Curry to provide more, Andre Drummond, and really a bunch of backups to try and, keep the winning streak going. But unfortunately, they lost 3 games in a row at home, like right after they lost with guys to COVID, but then went on a 6-game Western Conference road swing, which was tough, like extremely tough. And, unfortunately, that's been up and down because they've just been ravaged by COVID and injuries. But as you mentioned, Nick, they've been playing very well lately because Joel has just been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he has been absolutely incredible. Look, they lost yesterday, 118-98 to Washington. Embiid had 32 points, 8 rebounds. During this stretch, I think the 76ers have won 9 of their past 11 when he's just been playing absolutely incredible basketball. He's averaging, I think, 32, 10, 4, and 1.6 blocks over the course of that span, Ky. Ky, you see this team day in and day out. You're at the practices, you're at the arenas. How incredible has this run from Embiid actually been?
It's been really impressive for me when you consider everything that's been going on. As I mentioned, they're still dealing with a lot of COVID issues. They're still dealing with a lot of injury issues. Yet they've won 9 of their past 11 because Joel has just kind of stepped up and decided, I'm not going to allow this anymore. They were 16-16 on Christmas Day. Then they went on this streak. They won 7 in a row. They dropped the ball at home to Charlotte. That was definitely a little bit of a disappointing loss considering, Charlotte has been playing very good basketball this year, but the Sixers had beaten the Hornets 16 games in a row. So that was their first loss to them since 2016. But then they bounced back. They beat Boston. They beat Miami on back-to-back. But then they lay an egg to Washington. So that's kind of what I mean by these inconsistencies. It's just kind of like outside of Joel, you can always count on Joel, who's been absolutely awesome and incredible. But the rest of that roster needs to kind of step up a little bit.
Yeah, look, as somebody that's now on the outside, looking in, like obviously you and I know each other. I used to come to Philly quite a little bit, when I was in New York. I'm now on the outside looking in, and I'm looking at this squad now, and I feel like there's an over-reliance now on Joel Embiid, Ky, because like you've mentioned, you take Joel Embiid out of there, like, okay, Tobias Harris has been okay. I don't think he's been great this year. Seth Curry's been pretty good, but again, it's Seth Curry, no disrespect to him. He's not really like a number 2 or a number 3 option in my mind. Then you got guys like Andre Drummond. So is there too much of an over-reliance on Joel Embiid right now?
I think a little bit, because I definitely do agree with you. It just kind of seems like they're relying so heavily on him. And that is why the Ben Simmons thing is so frustrating, because he needs some help out there. Tobias has really been up and down. He hasn't been the same player he was in the 2020-21 season. I mean, he should have been an all-star in 2021, in my opinion. I mean, that's how great, that's how I thought Tobias was really playing last season. This season, it just, he's missing Ben. Like, I think he's the one who's missing Ben the most, just from the fact that Ben pushes the pace and Tobias doesn't have to handle the ball. All he has to do is catch and shoot. That's pretty much all he has to do. This year, there have been plenty of times where Tobias has had to bring the ball up. He's had to, sometimes run the offense because, again, you can't rely on a 21-year-old Tyrese Maxey to just kind of be that guy each and every night.
Yeah.
So Tobias has had to step up a little bit more, and he really hasn't been able to replicate the same offensive success. So I think there is a lot of reliance on Joel, and I think that could kind of come back to bite them a bit towards the end of this regular season, especially if they don't get Joel some help.
I actually saw a quote yesterday, Ky, which I thought was pretty interesting, and it's going to give us a nice little segue into our next topic, which is going to be Ben Simmons. But I'm going to read the quote out now. It was from Joel Embiid. So he said, "These guys, they just allow me to do what I do best offensively and defensively, but I felt pretty good, and I don't think we've played our best basketball yet. We've still got a long way to go. We're missing guys here, and that could really help us. There's really no urgency to change anything. I think we've got everything we need. We're going to keep on going. I'm happy." I thought that was actually a pretty damning quote from Embiid. Like, he feels like they've got everything they need, and I think it's actually pretty clear that they don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Joel being Joel. That's Joel kind of coming out and expressing his support for the organization, which I've been told that Joel is on board with this whole let's wait it out and see what we can get for Ben in the offseason thing. And, well, because it's the organization truly believes, Nick, that they can get a top 25 player for him. They have their eyes set on James Harden. And who knows about Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal? They say they're loyal. They come out and say it all the time, but who knows? Maybe by the end of this season, maybe their frustrations just boil over, and then bam, all of a sudden they are available. So I kind of look at this situation, and it does kind of seem like they're punting this season, and you are wasting a season of Joel's prime. But the important thing on their side is Joel. They have Joel's support. He's on their side and everything when it comes to what is going on with this whole Simmons situation. So I feel like in the grand scheme of things, if it's going to all hinge on the offseason, right, Nick? I mean, like if they can get the top 25 player that they think that they can get, then this season wasn't a waste. It wasn't a wash. And then they can really try again next year. The big issue with that is, Joel has dealt with so many injuries. You don't know how long he's going to be at the top of his game.
Facts. Like, that's actually something they've definitely got to, consider. I saw this morning there was a report, and we've actually got the tweet now that we're going to put up and show people in regards to a Ben Simmons trade. Apparently, the Pistons made an offer of Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey, Kelly Olynyk, and a first-round pick to the 76ers for Ben Simmons, and the 76ers were not excited about that offer, according to this tweet. Ky, I think that's actually a pretty good deal for Philadelphia right now, because I know they're holding out for a top 25 player, but no one's really offering a top 25 player for Ben Simmons right now. And I keep saying this. I've been saying this all season. A player or anything in life is only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it. And if no one's meeting that asking price that Philadelphia is asking for, I think if they really want to get rid of him, they're going to have to take one of these deals that keeps coming at them.
I'm kind of on your side here. Like, I feel like at some point you got to end this, because it's frustrating. It's like you are wasting Joel, and at some point you got to just make a move. Here's my issue with that Piston trade, though. Jeremy Grant and Tobias Harris play the same position, so it doesn't really make much sense for me for Philadelphia to make that trade. If I'm the Pistons, yeah, do it in a heartbeat. But if I'm Philadelphia, no. And the reason is we've already seen Tobias at the 3 before, right? I mean, when Al Horford was here, and it was an absolute disaster. And Tobias is already having a tough season to begin with right now. You don't want to put him back at the 3 and, pretty much potentially make things worse is basically it right now. So, like, I look at it, and I think the reason why they turned it down was because they are seriously, extremely confident that they can get a top 25 player for him in the offseason. Yeah. And as far as Ben is concerned, literally willing to sit out this entire season, which I think is insane on his part, considering he's only 25 and he's in the prime of his career. But hey, if he wants to waste a year of his career, I mean, listen, that's on him.
Yeah, it's this whole situation. It does need a resolution. Ben's willing to sit out a year. They're willing to hang on to him for as long as it takes until they get what they want. It's just crazy to me because I look at it and I'm like, well, this guy's trade value is probably the lowest that it's ever been. And how do you get his trade value back up? You get his trade value back up by getting him on the floor. He's showing because apparently he was working on his game the whole summer. So get on the floor, show that you worked on your game, show us the evidence of that. Meanwhile, Philadelphia gets to showcase their star guy and say, look, this guy still is a game-changing guy. Let's make a deal now. I saw that James Harden one being rumored yesterday as well. Do you think there's legs to that one there, Ky, or is that just all talk for the moment? Like, why would Harden want to leave Brooklyn?
I'm not really sure why he would want to leave Brooklyn, but I mean, like those reports are coming from legitimate outlets, like coming from some Joe Schmo. They were coming from the top outlets and everything. So if it's coming from that, then where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So I kind of feel like if he really wants out of Brooklyn, and the only way that's going to keep him in Brooklyn is if the Nets win a title. Like I feel like that's kind of the vibe I'm kind of getting right now. If the Nets win a title, then yeah, he's not going to leave there. But the way I see it is just like if you can get Harden, and it's a real possibility. It's not like because Daryl Morey and James still have a good relationship. It's not like Daryl Morey left and all of a sudden James Harden was like, nah, screw Daryl Morey, I'm done with that guy. No, like those two still have a pretty solid relationship. So if James wants to come to Philadelphia and play for Daryl again and team up with Joel, I mean, I feel like Sixers games would be like 4 hours with the amount of free throws both Joel and Harden take. But I mean, the point is, it's still like a very good possibility, and then that would be like a one dynamic, really tough duo to stop. So if you can make that happen, then yeah, go for it.
It's been actually 212 days since we last saw Ben Simmons in a Philadelphia 76. That's insane to me. We had Keith Pompey on a few weeks back, Ky, and I asked him this question as well. I want to ask you too. What's the feeling towards Simmons right now among the fan base? Like Keith was telling us that this was at the beginning of the season. He said, look, they hate him right now. Has that feeling changed? What's the feeling among the city? Do they just want a resolution to all of this and move on? What's going on in Philly right now?
It's public enemy number one in this city. They hate him. They can't stand him. I have seen the nastiest tweets and messages about Ben Simmons on,
wow.
Like every social media platform you could think of in this city. Like even now, I actually just recently moved to Philadelphia. Well, when you were in Philly, I was still actually living in southern New Jersey.
Okay.
Then I just recently moved to Philly like about a year and a half ago, and I mean, every time I go anywhere, to a restaurant, to a bar, or I kind of overhear conversations. Yeah, they couldn't care less about Ben Simmons. They don't want him back. They can't stand him. They think nasty things about him. That they hate him. Somebody was like, I would trade him to Australia for a kangaroo. I was like, oh God. So it's like, yeah, they hate him. They want nothing to do with him.
Well, it's a shame that it's come to this, and hopefully we get a resolution to this one way or another, because it's just been dragging on for way too long. Ky, I want to ask you now, having seen what you've seen from the Philadelphia 76ers, what do you realistically expect from them this season? How much of a deep playoff run can they go on?
Not much, Nick. I mean, a lot of it kind of depends on matchups. Like I was kind of thinking about it, like if this team were to face a healthy Miami team in round one, they could lose to the Heat, and like they could lose round one. Or if they face Milwaukee, or if they happen to face off with Brooklyn, or any of these other teams, they could lose round one. If they play Chicago, they could beat the Bulls, because as good as Chicago's been this year, Levine's never been to the playoffs. Lonzo Ball has never been to the playoffs. DeRozan obviously has a ton of playoff experience with Toronto and San Antonio. But the Sixers would just, I feel like they would beat Chicago. But yeah, I mean, right now I think they're the 6th seed as it stands right now. And it's January 18th. We're more than halfway into this season. If they stay at 6 and they got to play a team like Milwaukee, Miami, or Brooklyn, then yeah, I could see them losing round one. I don't think they beat either of those teams. If they face Chicago or even the surprising Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland's been a ton of fun to watch this year. I feel like they could lose to Cleveland. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, Cleveland? No, come on. But Philadelphia is small, man. Like they struggle with rebounding. They struggle against long teams. And the Cavs are at that jumbo front line with Laurie Markkinen, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. And then even Kevin Love coming off the bench has kind of revitalized his career a little bit, as a bench player. Like even the Cavs would give that team a lot of trouble. So, yeah, depending on the matchup, Nick, they could lose round one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I'm also with you with the Cavs. I think they've been incredibly fun to watch this season. It's just, when I look at it, like we talked about, it's a shame to have wasted a year of Embiid's prime, which is probably one of the best individual seasons he's having right now. It's a shame that Simmons is willing to waste a year of his prime. I didn't think that the Sixers could win a championship even with those two. Look, I know they got close with those 4 bounces against, Toronto. I didn't think that they were able to win a championship though, but they definitely can't do it without each other. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Philadelphia 76ers. Ky, we're going to let you go very shortly, but before we do, we always end the show with some game predictions. We've only got a couple of games on the NBA schedule today. We'll start off with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New York Knicks here. The Timberwolves, $1.67 favorites against my New York Knicks. Knicks at $2.29. The line is at 3. Totals at 215. This one's live on NBA League Pass. The Wolves beat a depleted Warriors a couple of nights ago. They're 9th in the West, 21-22. No Kemba Walker for the Knicks. Nerlens Noel listed as day-to-day. Knicks, poor effort against Charlotte the other day after a nice 3-game stretch. Ky, who do you like in this game?
I like Minnesota. They've been a lot of fun to watch this year. And as you just mentioned, the Knicks are coming off like a really just terrible Martin Luther King Day effort against Charlotte. And I feel like the Knicks really struggle with teams like the Timberwolves, teams that are just athletic and can score a bunch of points. The Knicks, they made those moves in the offseason to bring in Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, but they haven't exactly proven to be the right moves, specifically. And I'm going to take Minnesota because I love Anthony Edwards, and I think Anthony Edwards is an absolute beast.
I agree with you. Anthony Edwards has been absolutely incredible. It's been a bit of a running joke this year, Ky, because every time I pick the Knicks, they lose, and then every time I decide that I'm never going to pick them again, they end up winning those games. But I think the money in Minnesota today is pretty much bang on because I think Minnesota wins this one as well. Next game up on the schedule, we have the Pistons and the Warriors. Jesus, look at the money on this one here. The Golden State Warriors, $1.04 favorites. Detroit Pistons, $11. Lines at -16. Total is at 218 there. Also live on NBA League Pass. Ky, the Pistons have won 10 games this year, and I'm actually surprised they've won that much. But they have gotten a couple of good wins. They're just not going to get one of those good wins today. No Jeremy Grant, no Kelly Olynyk for the Pistons. I think the Warriors win this one easily.
Yeah, really not much to really add. Detroit's been terrible, and I mean, there's no other way to really put it. I mean, Cade Cunningham. I do love Cade Cunningham. I think that kid was the absolute right pick at number 1 for them in this draft. I think Cade just has it. And then I like Sadiq Bey for them, but Bey just for some reason has not been able to replicate the same type of shooting success he had last year. He's beginning to show flashes again recently, but he hasn't been able to shoot the ball as well. But those two are good building blocks. So I mean, Cade, Sadiq, and then you just mentioned Jeremy and Kelly. Like those two guys could be up for trades as we just kind of discussed earlier in this segment. So, but yeah, as far as tonight goes, yeah, give me the Warriors easily with Clay and Steph back. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I think, again, the money's bang on with that one there. Ky, we're going to let you go because we know you're a very busy man on that Philadelphia 76ers beat. Thank you so much for for taking the time to talk with us today. And, you know, hopefully we get a chance to have you on before the end of the season as well.
Absolutely, Nick. Thank you so much for having me on, man, thinking about me. And, you know, I'll shout out to all you guys and all you guys do out there, man.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. This has been another episode of The Last Shot NBA show here on Little Birdie TV. As always, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. And we'll see you guys back again on Friday morning with old mate Benyam Kadane.